have Darshak with us here, because now the next question that after all this discussion would be that how do we understand that there is going to be different residential status in terms of income tax, in terms of FEMA, when we try to remit our funds abroad. So we have here Darshak with us, who is an expert in tax litigations and a gap analyzer. He has resolved more than 300 tax cases referred by many other chartered accountants and lawyers. He has been successful in tax advising in M&A deals to achieve business goals. So all over to you, Darshak. Help us understand what would be the tax implication if the money is earned in India and transferred abroad, or vis-a-vis if the money is earned abroad. Darshak, all over to you.
Thank you, Nikki. Thank you, Bhairav, Harish, for giving this presentation and enlightening the people about the importance of currency and importance of countries where we should be where we should be looking out for our settlement or for migrations. Of course, now the important point then arises is how is going to be the tax implication of this, and let me just quickly go through some important parts of it so that you have a fair idea about the tax implications. Just give me a second. Here, so I think you should be able to see the screen. I'll just share with you about taxation. So, of course, the first question then arises: what happens to a non-residency status? So, when will you be qualified to be a non-resident? So, first, let's understand what is non-resident and what is non-resident individual. So, non-resident individual is basically a person who is a citizen of India or a person of Indian origin who have now shifted there and has become a non-resident of India. So that's an NRI, and non-resident is basically a person who satisfies the following condition, and as a result of that, he qualifies to be a non-resident of India. Very simply, if we consider it, the condition is very clear. It says 2 points. Point number 1, you have been there in India for 60 days in a financial year, and in the previous 4 years, if you have been there in India for almost a year, then in that case, you become a resident. That's condition number 1. Condition number 2 is, let's say if you have not been there for 4 years, but you have been there in India for more than 182 days in any year, then in that year also you become a resident. So the condition is saying that you have been in India for a financial year where you have been there for 182 days. So your stay is longer and therefore you qualify to be a resident. Or your stay in a span of time has been there in India and therefore you qualify to be a resident. Now at times what happens, you have been there in India for many years. Now you have shifted to other country. So therefore 60 days criteria is very small to see. So they have extended that conditions. They have extended from 60 days to 182 days in certain situations. The situations can be when you're going abroad for the purpose of employment, when you are coming to India for a visit. So on such conditions, those small span of 60 days has got extended to 182 days. So that's point number 1. Now there are a lot of Indian citizens who are coming to India, but they are not coming to India for only a short visit. Okay, they have a certain span of time. So there what has happened is they have said that if you have been in India for more than 120 days, and if you are satisfying, you are having an income in India of more than 15 lakh rupees, then the condition will be 120 days, right? So the 60 days condition is getting extended to 120 days if you have an income above 15 lakh and you are coming to India, right? And the other condition, of course, is that you have been in India for 365 days in 4 years. So summarily, that's how the condition will qualify you to be a resident or non-resident. Now, once you are qualified, then the next question is, what is the implication of it? Now, to summarize this implication for us in an easy terms, you need just refer to this particular chart and the matrix which is given in this chart. The matrix says that if you are an Indian resident and if you are having an overseas income, right? So because you are resident of India, the final ultimate taxation power is there with the Indian government. And whatever taxes you pay in overseas country, you get a credit of it. Similarly, if you have an Indian residency and you have an Indian income, of course, because you are a resident of India, you are not being taxed in the foreign country, therefore there is no double taxation. Now, the third situation could be that you are a resident of foreign country. So, for example, you have gone for studies and you have been for the longest span of time, and therefore you are now not a resident of India. And in that case, if you have an Indian income, then what happens is you pay tax in India, but you get a credit in foreign country, right? The situation becomes complex when you have dual residency or you have a dual income. Now that situation needs to be examined in detail, condition to condition, situation to situation. Now I have briefed about some of the purposes for which we generally have to examine the taxation. So let's say if person has gone for studies. Now there are two laws which are going to be applicable. Law number one is going to be taxation. The law number two is going to be FEMA, right? Now, when you go for studies, of course, when your parents or the funds which are lying in the student account in India, when he is remitting the money overseas, in that case there is no taxation, and the limit which is available is 250,000 USD. Now, when you earn, when you have shifted there for studies, you work for part time and you earn some income, right? Now, when you earn some income, you again have to go back to the previous chart and see what is your residency, and accordingly the tax will apply. Same is for when you are studying abroad and you have some passive income here, so which could be your investments income. Now, what will happen to that and what is the tax implication? Again, this chart will clearly give the guidelines on how the taxation will play a role, right? Now, what happens when you're coming back to India and you have certain funds which you have earned there? Now you want to bring those funds to India. Now the taxation will be if you give that money to relative, then of course there is no tax implication. There is no limitations on the money which you bring back to India. But of course, in respective countries have certain limitations, but the limitations are much higher than what generally people are bringing to India, and therefore it is much more within the caps. Now, what happens when you're going for a job? Okay, you have an income both in India. So let's say you are on a job. When you go for a job in a mid-time, in the mid of the year, you have an Indian income also, and you have an overseas income also, salary income. Then what happens? So again, very simple. You have to go back to the previous chart and see what is your residency, and accordingly you take a decision. I'll be sharing this particular file, so everybody will be able to refer to that particular table. Now, the rule is very clear. When you have earned income overseas, you were non-resident. Now, when you come back to India, when you bring the money back to India, it is not going to be taxable, right? Now, setting up of the business. Now, let's say if you want to set up a business. Now, being an individual, if you want to set up a business, again, $250,000 is available for remittances overseas. Okay, but if you are a private company or you are being an LLP, in that case, 400% of the net worth is something which you have been able to remit. Now, there is certain conditions to be satisfied. Of course, that can always be evaluated. Trading business, if you do a trading business overseas from India, okay, then of course that amount is going to be taxable in India. If you have some service income, so if you rendered some service overseas and you earn an income from that, then of course that is going to be taxable in India because you are present in India, your business is in India, so that is going to be taxable in India. Now, certain payments which you make from business is basically are not taxable. Like for example, commission payment, it's not taxable. Interest payment, largely it's not taxable. But yeah, there are certain countries where it asks for taxation, so therefore you will have to pay. Royalty payment is of course taxable, and consulting payments are not. Consulting payments are something which needs to be examined from country to country. Now, let's say if you plan to go for overseas permanent residency, right? Now, again, when you go for permanent residency, like some of my clients have shifted to US permanently, and they took certain money over there. So while you make a remittance, there is no tax. Passive income which you earn in India, again, you need to refer to that chart, which is a kind of a guidelines or a bible for us to understand the tax structure, right? And remittances, if you make, so let's say you earn certain passive income there also, and if you want to remit back to India, that is not going to be taxable in India. Now, the very frequent question then is that what happens if I send somebody for education and if I take a loan for higher education? Now, when you take a loan for higher education, basically it is available for the interest which you pay on that higher loans. Okay, that is not going to be, so that is going to be a deduction, tax deduction. So whatever interest you pay, there is no limit for it. Whatever interest you pay, you get the deduction for that. Right? Uh, that is as far as the loan for higher education is concerned. Now, I will quickly go through some of the FEMA rules, what it says. Now, what happens is, let's say, for example, if you become a NRI from the FEMA perspective, which says that if you have been in India for less than 180 days, then you qualify to be a non-resident as per FEMA rules. Now, when you become a non-resident, the year in which you become a non-resident, the law asks you to convert your normal account to NRO account. Okay. Uh, Now, what is the utilization of this accounts? NRO account, NRE account, FCNR account. This is something which you must have usually heard about. Now, what happens is for NRO account is mainly for, let's say you shifted there, but you still are having some income in India, and which you want to deposit. So bank will allow you to deposit because you have become a non-resident. They will allow you to deposit into an NRO account. Okay, and $1 million is something which you can remit in a financial year from an NRO account to the overseas account, right? So that is the objective of NRO account. Why people have NRE account is mainly because whatever foreign income which you want to bring to India, and you are intending that I will invest over here, and whenever I want to remit back, I should be able to repatriate back. So that is the purpose for which you will maintain NRE account, wherein whatever foreign income or foreign inflows which you want to bring to India, you can bring through an NRE account. Okay, so that is the objective of opening an NRE account. FCNR accounts are mainly for the businesses. So basically, when they want to maintain all the transactions in dollars, so there is an inward of dollar and there is outward of dollar. So they will maintain FCNR account because there what happens is you are not having an exposure to any currency risk. Okay, because you maintain the money in the dollar account. So that's the objective of FCNR, which generally is used by the business owners. Right? So that's broadly about what NRE and NRO and FCNR accounts, which generally we have been referring to. Now let me take some very important and very frequently asked questions. The first question generally is that once employed abroad, okay, and if I become NRI, what are the steps which I'm supposed to do? So person should open a bank account in foreign countries, allows to remit 1 million, as I said, immediately remittance on turning NRI should be avoided. So you should not do immediately, you should do so after some time. Can come to on a visit in India and stay for 120 days, which is a relief only for Indian citizen and a person of Indian origin. So 120 days, if your income is above 15 lakh in India, below 15 lakh, you can still stay for 182 days. Bank account within India can continue, but need to be converted to NRO account. Investments in shares and mutual funds are allowed. Insurance policies can be continued, and existing loans can also be continued till it is mature. So NRI can invest directly or through an SPV or some other mode. So they can do an investments, and that can continue. Restrictions are there in some of the sectors where they are not allowing for an NRE to make a direct investment or a repatriable investment. So they cannot repatriate the money back. Now, what is the tax part as far as the NRO NRE interest is concerned? So in NRO account, because you have normal Indian income, of course it is going to be taxable. right? The currency, because as we speak, it's an Indian currency, and there is no allowance of deduction. NRE, what happens is you get an exemption because it's a dollar account and you earn interest out of that. So you have, for a non-resident, it is exempt. FCNR account is also exempt. Uh, Now, when you go to NR security income, what happens to the taxability of security income? So, all the remittances. So, let's say you are a non-resident and you are earning an income in India. So, any investments which you had done in past, you continue to make an investments, right? And you earn an income there. That is going to be having a tax implication, as otherwise it's applicable to other Indian residents, right? Now what happens there is you are allowed to make a remittance, as we spoke in past, to the extent of $1 million from the NRO. Right? So that's Indian generated income which you can remit to the extent of $1 million. Now there is a foreign fluctuation adjustments. So like what happens, to have an indexation in India, when you are a non-resident and when you have invested through a foreign currency and you are taking the money back while the sales process, whatever capital gain, there is a foreign fluctuation adjustments which is given by the law, by the income tax law. So that's one advantage which you can take. I think some other important questions related to FEMA. How can fees be remitted to students going abroad for studies? So the remittance can be basically to the extent of 2.5 $250,000 in a year, okay? And that is through a of authorized banks. Can student going abroad open overseas account? Yes, you can. So that's option is available. Can parents transfer fund to overseas account of students? Yes. So parents can transfer to the extent of 2.5 lakh US dollars. Can overseas students remit income earned from part-time jobs in India? Yes. So any income which they earn there, their parents paying in India, if they want to make the remittance, they can do. Can the overseas student utilize funds earned from the part-time job overseas to buy assets? Yes, that is allowed. You can buy the assets there. Can close relatives or spouses send funds to students abroad? Yes, that is allowed. Of course, the limit, as we said, is 2.5 lakh USD under the LRS. Can the loan be taken for foreign education? Of course, you can, and you get a deduction if you are taking for a higher education. I think this is something which I wanted to discuss in the given time. Of course, I'm opening this thing for the purpose of discussion, and if anybody has some questions, we can take those questions on.